are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is Joe DeLeone, the Rutgers homer. Good evening, sir. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
That's my fault. I act like I've been here before. Rutgers is 3-0, man. Put some respect on Rutgers. They should be ranked over Iowa, by the way. That is an abomination that Iowa has made it into the back end of the AP poll, and Rutgers isn't in there.
So I found out yesterday from the Jersey local that if you're Italian, you're automatically able to be homer. So I have bought me some Rutgers gear.
Good. I have actually looked into investing in some more
the
Rutgers
Fighting
gear.
Greg Schianos, man.
Yes, the Fighting Greg Schianos.
Don't underestimate the Fighting Greg Schianos.
No. Outside of Rutgers winning, though, we had a insane weekend.
Wait, I thought you said it was going to be a dud.
No. I didn't say that. I said that on paper, the slate of games doesn't look good. I agreed with you that we're going to learn a lot about these teams coming up because of the way things were going to play out. And that exactly happened.
Well, so a couple things. There's a guy about 6'2.5", around 290-ish, who told you if he had a sleeper team in the SEC, it would be Missouri.
Uh-huh.
They just took down the reigning, defending Big 12 champions.
That same person also picked Missouri to lose to Kansas State in his game picks.
I know. You know why? Because I keep going with my head and going with what normal people do. I need to start going back to my gut and just picking what I've been saying. That's what I need to be doing.
So when it's an SEC versus a non-conference team, just picking the SEC team.
But see, I get labeled an SEC homer, but the truth is, and we probably should have clipped this and put it in the show. Dude, I told you Missouri. Look, man, I'm telling they have recruited well enough to be able to be the second team in the East, and people continue to laugh at that. But I know you don't like the Cook kid, but man, Joe, at any given Saturday, here's not named Georgia, they could beat anybody in the East. Are you sure that they can take down Tennessee? Are you sure that they can't take down South Carolina? I mean, if Florida's running game's not on par, then what? So we'll talk about Kansas State and Missouri here tonight, along with Tennessee and Florida. Colorado, man, let me tell you something. I do not like them playing at 10 o'clock.
Why? Because you had to stay up and watch that?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock, and it's still going on. They're about to go into overtime. I fell asleep, man. I fell asleep. I woke up. Shadur Sanders is hitting old boy, the tight end, the tall white kid in the back of the end zone. It was ball game. I'm like, isn't that ironic?
That game was just insane to watch. And I'm excited to talk about this one because we have to be honest with ourselves that Colorado's a fun story, but it was odd that this was the game that it was exposed. But they have clear weaknesses, and those weaknesses are going to hurt them.
Joe, they won
but nobody
won the game last year. What did we expect?
But everybody wanted. If you said that Colorado had a bad offensive line and no defensive depth, it was heresy to make that statement. But it showed up yesterday, and I'm very wary for that Oregon game. If Travis Hunter's not playing, it's going to
seems like from Dion, he's going to be out a couple weeks.
Yeah. It's all going to fall on Shadur's shoulders. And I know that he's a fantastic player. And if somebody can put a team on their back, it's him. But it might be a long day for Colorado next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about them as well. But Joe, we got a lot of teams that we got to touch on. Alabama, we're going to have to touch on them. We're going to have to talk about Alabama. Look, man. Well, they go into the Ole Miss game a 6-point favorite. How? I don't know.
Wait. What book? I need to bet money on this. Is this on Bet Online?
Yeah. Well, so Brad Logan, who's on Believe, at 9 a.m. this morning went to Bet Online only has one game. It's Colorado, Oregon. Right now, at least unless they change.
They just put out the line. So let's see. I am rushing to put money on that game if that's the case. What were you saying about Brad though? While I'm looking for it,
Brad this morning at 9 o'clock on Caesar Sportsbook, it was 11.5, plus 11.5 for Ole Miss.
It's plus 7 on Bet Online.
So that game went literally from Brad Logan posting that at 9 o'clock to right now at 6:05 p.m. Central Standard Time, it's gone down that much.
That's free money.
Bama can't score. I know it's at home, and maybe they go back to Milroe, but they got a lot of issues. Bama has a lot of issues.
Issues feels like a really nice way of putting it. They have problems. They have massive, massive, glaring red flags. Like I don't think anyone is. I'm trying to think the best way to put this. It's almost hard to fully articulate how much trouble they're in. It feels weird to say that Nick Saban, Alabama are in a bad position. I said this in a video that I did on my other channel. This is the worst Alabama team I've ever seen. Like, without a doubt.
2007 was really bad. They were a really bad team. They went
Saban's first year?
Or 7-6. Yeah, Saban's first year. They were a really bad team. A really, really bad team.
Do you think they're comparable to that?
No, I think they're worse.
That is frightening.
Well, here's the thing. They're definitely worse at quarterback. Okay, without question. But the offensive line, like Joe, all offseason, everybody's like, look how big they are. Look how strong they are. Doesn't matter because they're not good.
They can't block for shit.
They can't.
It's too young.
BYU takes down Arkansas.
Gross.
Dude, KJ Jefferson's not that good right now. Without Rocket, he made 2 throws that are juvenile.
I think the funniest part about this is that video that was recorded of the BYU players who didn't know where Arkansas was, and they show up and they kick their butt and they leave. Very ironic. Very ironic.
Sam Pittman is, look, they go into Baton Rouge next weekend in a night game in Death Valley. That's not going to be pleasant for them. Okay. Nope. Let's see if they can bounce back and keep that close. LSU takes down Mississippi State. Malik Neighbors goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Jaden Daniels goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Ohio State gets back on their winning ways. I mean, they hadn't lost, but they look good offensively, even though they were playing Rudy Putek, and Georgia comes all the way back as well. And look, Washington, I finally am starting to get on the Washington train.
I'm glad you said that, and we'll probably talk about it at the end, but dude, they look really freaking good. And I think it's perfect setup for really proving how good they are, that in a weekend where everyone seemingly struggled with a game that they were supposed to blow out teams, they showed up and they said, we're going to kick the crap out of them.
I told you wacky things happen. This is what – so, look, there are 4 separation Saturdays, in my opinion. I've said this religiously. You have one in week 3. You have one about week 6, week 7. You have one in week 10. And then, obviously, the last week of the season is the last separation Saturday, okay?
Yeah.
This is where teams start separating themselves a little bit. I'll come out with my top 10 tomorrow. I know that you took LSU out. I kept LSU in my top 10. Well, now you know why, okay?
They belong.
They belong in there. Joe, it might come down to them in Georgia again. And I don't know if there's any teams that can take them down in this run that they're on. So we'll see. We just got so much we need to discuss, and we need to get to it. Cody McGee said South Carolina pissed that game away against Georgia. I don't know if I'd say that. I just think Georgia,
they got in a rhythm.
They got in a rhythm.
Yeah.
Sean Stewart says to Alabama fans, enjoy that Tommy Rees offense. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I love the Notre Dame shit talking. It's been slowly picking up steam. I love that my guys are in the chat here talking shit. This is going to be a fun week.
It's going to be a really fun week. A lot of big-time marquee games. Delton on YouTube says, I hope Oregon skull drugs Colorado. Either you love Colorado or you hate them, or you're like me and you're somewhat in the middle of them.
See, wait, I push back on that. I don't think there's as many people that hate Colorado as some people are making it out to be. I think that there's like a 70% of college football fans are rooting for them. There's like 25% that are indifferent, like the both of us, but are excited because it's a fun storyline. And then there's like the 5% that can't stand them. I don't think it's as divisive of a debate as.
I mean, bro, they got Lil Wayne coming out doing a walkout song when they're running out. I mean, like
that's awesome.
Miami.
It's hilarious.
They're the new Miami,
without a doubt.
Without a doubt. All right, we got a lot to get into. Let's do that now. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. If you're on Facebook, stop what you're doing right now. Hit the like and share. Share to all those social media groups. Share to all your social media pages. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell. Share to Twitter. Share to Facebook. Help us grow this show. If you're on wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're watching us on Fubo TV, welcome. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. We got a lot to discuss, as we just mentioned. Let's not waste any time. Let's do it. Let's talk about our good friends at BetOnline. Don't go anywhere. We're right back. Wrong thing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
We're back.
Hold. Last week I came on this show and told you that last week's game between Texas and Alabama showed more about how bad Alabama was more than how good Texas was. Then Texas, they have a players-only meeting with Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers leads this meeting only for Quinn Ewers to piss down his leg into the fourth quarter. I promise you this as God is my witness. They are not as good as people are making them out to be. I told you that all last week. Alabama is a very bad football team. When you go 7 of 18 on third down and everybody wants to tell me, oh, Texas is bad, Texas is good. Bullshit, okay? Alabama is not a good football team. I know Kansas State just lost to Missouri, but they're going to go up against Oklahoma, Kansas State. They might lose those games. Texas is not back, bro. I'm telling you.
I get that. I understand that. But I also said on the show that they are going to get too hyped on themselves to go to Wyoming and completely lay an egg. Here's my only thing, though.
Texas is not a top 5 team. I told you that in your rankings.
Here's my only thing. They are going to finish unscathed because the Big 12 sucks this year. The Big 12
Oklahoma might clap them cheeks.
That's where their only test is, and we're going to find out which.
If Jalen Milroe can find wide open dudes, Joe, Dylan Gabriel's going to kick that ass.
Here's how I see this: the winner of the Texas-Oklahoma game will go to the playoff.
I don't disagree with that
because neither of those teams have a difficult schedule. And again, the Big 12 sucks this year. It is terrible this year.
Well,
really
you say
bad.
that, but then BYU goes into Arkansas and claps those cheeks. Both, I'm telling you, Texas is going to get a loss. I don't know where it's going to come. I don't know who it's going to be. They are not a top 5 team, but you got to put them up there because they beat it's the prestige of beating Alabama. But here's another thing too. That's back-to-back week or 2 weeks out of the 3. Wyoming beats Texas Tech, and then they give Texas everything that they had to offer and some. Wyoming might not
program.
That might not be a bad team. All right.
No.
You know who I think is maybe I'm not going to say they're a bad team, but I told you weird things happen in the swamp. That's why I put an asterisk next to the Tennessee pick. Florida physically dominated Tennessee up front on both lines of scrimmage. Joe Milton went 20 of 34, 287, 2 touchdowns, and 1 yard. He didn't get any real help with the rushing attack. But Florida, ATN, Montreal, ATN just went off. 23 carries, 172 yards. And I know that the Graham Mertz stat line is not going to blow anybody away. But, man, the kid's thumb was bleeding profusely. He took massive shots from the Tennessee defensive line. Graham, if I'm just a college football fan, take my LSU biases out of it for just a minute. Graham Mertz is a dude, man. He went into Utah, got his ass kicked. He continued to fight. He goes into the Tennessee game, the same thing. The bottom line, though, is Joe Milton is, like I've been saying all offseason, everybody's like, he can throw the ball 90 yards. I don't give a shit if he can throw it 200 yards. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. What have we seen that everybody just, magically thinks he's fantastic? A buddy that covers LSU, he kept telling me this offense isn't going to change for Tennessee. It's got to change with Joe Milton. Florida just physically dominated them in every aspect of the game, and that's how they won it. They pushed them around and did what they wanted to.
I, back in February, made a claim, and it was at the beginning of the show, so it kind of went a little bit unnoticed, but I have to resurrect the thing that I talked about when we previewed Tennessee coming into the season. I said that I am not putting my eggs in the Tennessee basket because of Joe Milton, and it's exactly what you just said. There's this excitement for Joe Milton as a draft prospect, as a football player. Oh, he's so big and athletic. He's got a huge arm. He can throw the ball 90 yards. Watch him do the trick shots. But the problem is a lot of times with these guys with huge arms lack touch, they lack timing, they lack ball placement, and he also lacks the decision-making. Joe Milton's fun to talk about. He's fun to watch run around in 7-on-7, but he is not the best quarterback for them to succeed. I think that Tennessee's going to be a fine team this year. I think that their run game is going to recover and they're going to be okay. Their offensive line's decent. It didn't play great in this game. But I really think that the conversation on flipping to Nico Iamaleava, the true freshman quarterback, needs to be had. Arizona State played Jaden Rashada until he got hurt. Dante Moore has played for UCLA, and they're ranked. Why not go with the guy that more closely resembles Hendon Hooker's physical traits and that is going to be more successful in this offense when they don't have the same receiver talent as last year? Why not go to that guy? Instead, you're going to keep relying on a guy that just because he's a fifth-year senior, because he's been around for a long time.
Joe, I think that sixth year. He's a six-year guy.
If he has one more bad game, you got to make that switch. You can't mess around with this stuff. He's just he lost the job once, and he has not improved at all since the last time he lost that job.
Number one, that I do think that's a very fine line, right? Pulling him for a freshman quarterback. It's a really fine line. Because
it's a 5-star, though.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Arch Manning was behind him. It wouldn't have mattered who. It doesn't matter who it is. It's a fine line when you pull a 6-year guy for a freshman. Because God willing, Nico gets hurt or something happens and, he goes out there and starts performing bad, then what? Then you're going to go back to Milton? I just think that I understand what you're saying, but let's not act as if that's why they lost this game too. Okay, it was Joe Milton.
It's a very important reason why they lost the game. Sure,
it was a big real. He did not have a good game. Trevor Etienne still just scored another touchdown on Tennessee.
Right.
Here's the problem that I have with seeing people talk about this game last night. Okay, I saw it all over Twitter. How can you say Florida's offense is ass and Graham Mertz is not a good quarterback, and then turn right around when they're just kicking the shit out of Tennessee and say, oh, well, this is on Joe Milton? The problem I have is Joe, they miss so many tackles. The long run from Trevor Etienne, he makes a free safety miss. This dude is not he's not the best guy in fleet of foot. Then a safety just hits him, tries to knock him over, and he just kind of looks at him. He's like, what? And then just keeps running for a touchdown. Did Joe Milton have a lot of reasons on why they lost the game? Yeah, I'm not going to deny that. Acting like Tennessee defensively, was worth anything is also a reason why they lost. I mean, they couldn't tackle anybody. They couldn't get a pass rush on Graham Mertz at times. They got pushed around up front by an O-line who, Joe, 3 weeks ago, we came on this show and said, oh, well, they're not good. They might not win an SEC game. They might go 4-8. To then them going into the swamp in the night game, kicking the shit out of everybody. Billy Napier didn't give a damn. Billy said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to line up and run it down your throat until you stop it, and they ran it all night long. Now, Billy did say in the postgame that he got a little too conservative, which I agree. He got a little too conservative. That score is not, it's not as if Graham Mertz went out there and just was killing everybody. They ran it right at him and said, stop it. You know what I thought about, Joe? This was a Les Miles, Alabama in the past type of game. It was a Georgia type of game. Yeah, maybe it was a 2-score game. But as soon as Florida scored that first touchdown and answered them, when Joe Milton ran down the end zone and scored and that offense looked beautiful, they said it doesn't matter. We're just going to run the ball and keep the ball away from you. Joe, the time of possession in this game was absolutely ridiculous. I look at this. Tennessee had the ball for 22 minutes. Florida almost had the ball for 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
That's nuts.
That is insane. For 2/3 of the game, Joe, Florida was just saying, you know what? We're going to bleed it. We're going to go kick the clock all the way down to 1. We're going to hand it off for 7 yards. And they did that all night long.
I also want to add, this part into it. We talked about this in the preview of this when we said this game could be close. And we also talked about it after they lost to Utah on what held them back. If they play clean football and they don't get all young, inexperienced, mistake-free football, they don't start playing that way like they did against Utah, this team's not half bad. And I even brought that up in the offseason that, like, you could get some good games and steal some games with this roster. It's not a bad roster. They've got a lot of really young, talented recruits on this team. And as long as you go out there, you inflict your identity on your opponent. And again, no false starts, no holding penalties, no stupid special teams bullshit, none of that stuff.
No, the opposite happened. Tennessee was the team that had 10 penalties for 80 yards. They were the ones that had the issues.
And Florida was so clean, which I don't think many of us expected. One, that was going to happen, and two, that they could do it against a really good opponent. And if they can finish the rest of the season playing the way that they did against Tennessee and not the way that they played against Utah, they can win 7-8 games. I think that is realistically possible. But
what does it say about Florida? I mean, in some extent, you lost the former Pac-12 champion. Oh, well, you didn't have Cam Rising, and you have a brand new quarterback your damn self. I mean, we take so much in these week 1 losses. Utah a year ago, Florida this one. And they just start doing what they do. Billy here's the thing that's going to bite Billy in the ass. Billy got too conservative. He can't do that against the Georgias. He can't do that against the LSUs. Hell, later in the year, they play Florida State. He can't do it. If he finds himself up 7-0, 10-0, he can't get conservative. He's going to have to go for it. So I agree with what you're saying, but he played way too conservative that when he started getting a lead, they kick a field goal there. Joe, they kick a field goal. They got fourth and 3. Who gives a shit? They can't score, and if they score, you're up 10. Who gives a shit? Go for it. Try to plug it in there. Let Graham Mertz, for what it's worth. Again, the stats aren't going to show this, Joe, but when you go and break that down, Graham Mertz was on his A game yesterday. And you know what else I like from that? When they scored a touchdown, did you see when Mertz ran over to the sidelines and the entire Florida defense got off the bench, runs to Graham Mertz, and they gave him some marching band stick.
Yeah, I saw that.
It has nothing to do with the celebration for me. You know what it showed me? The entire defense got up to greet him. When have you ever seen that? Because I know that I play, you play college football. I've been in a lot of these circles as well. I've never, and I am talking about rarely, ever seen a defense get up and go and celebrate with their quarterback for what he's doing. I'm telling you, that speaks volumes about that dude, man.
I also, one other part of this, I get what you're saying where you don't want them to be too conservative. I think where they, separate from the stupid mistakes that they made against Utah, they got away from running the ball effectively. And they got away from it. They tried to force Graham Mertz to be the one who wins the game. And he's just not that guy. They need to just keep feeding ETN and all of those running backs. They've got a lot of really good running backs. They have a ton of really good running backs that they can lean on outside of ETN. Just keep running the ball, and that's going to make things easier for Mertz. Mertz in his career has never been somebody who puts the team on his back, who picks up the 3rd and long with the crazy throw. He's never been that guy. But when the offense is on schedule, yeah, he can make some nice throws. He can be consistent.
I mean, the third down when he pump faked it and ran to the sideline and picked up the first down. I mean, impressive, dude. I mean, he was as much as we want to poo-poo on him as a college football society.
Yes.
He was amazing, dude. He was amazing.
Yeah. It helps when he doesn't have to do everything. That's my big thing.
And you know what else? He will gain that confidence and start taking shots that he's not used to taking. I mean, look, man, he needs a running game to help him. He needs his team to help him. And you know what else is impressive? Joe, that offensive line, they pushed Tennessee around. I never thought that Tennessee would look that bad defensively. I mean, last year it wasn't their front seven that was the problem. It was their back end. They gave up more yards through the air than anybody almost in the SEC a year ago, and their front seven was the one. They were up there in a lot of sacks and TFLs. Their front seven under Heupel has been really good, but it was Florida's defensive line. The Sapp kid, you saw my buddy Warren Sapp. He quotes me. He goes, "Who the hell's this Sapp kid?" You know, he thought he had a kid that he didn't know about. You know, he's out here texting everybody saying, "Hey, is this my son? I didn't know about." But the defensive line for Florida too made Joe Milton's night hell. He was, dude, for as much as we want to talk shit about Joe Milton too, he took some shots in the pocket. He got blasted. You know, it's like, you know, that gif where all the hot dogs is, you know.
Here's my main thing, and this kind of actually feeds into actually doesn't really feed into the Missouri thing. I think that this game really solidifies for me that Georgia is going to go unscathed to another undefeated season. The fact that they were able to win against South Carolina despite playing a sloppy game, and that Tennessee looks as bad as they did in this game against Florida, which is supposed to be, you know, middle to back end of the conference, Georgia is not going to have any resistance. And we talked about this. Everyone talked about this, how soft their schedule was coming into the year. And it's, you know, people get mad when you say Georgia has a soft schedule, but they do. They have an easy schedule. The hardest game on their schedule was Tennessee. And Tennessee looked like shit in this game. I don't know. That's my final takeaway from this. I think that Georgia just more proof that they're going to be really freaking good this year.
You know, one team that I know that you're not going to like me saying this, but you got to start asking questions about Mizzou.
I don't mind giving them credit. Like you hate the Cook. Well, first off, I don't hate Brady Cook. By the way, okay. I have to bring this up. I don't want to hear shit from any Missouri fans or anybody about Brady Cook when the Missouri fans were booing Brady Cook.
I know.
I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear anything. He was fine. He made a couple nice throws. Luther Burden won them the game. But we did accurately predict this thing. If you go look at the comments, all the Kansas State fans in the comments were saying that, oh, we're going to win by 24 points. What are you talking about saying this is going to be a close defensive game? What happened? It was a close defensive game.
Well, I mean, it was 30-27. I don't know if we can consider that, you know.
There were a lot of big defensive plays that kept the game close.
Here was the thing for me. I thought that Will Howard was really good. I think the tight end for Kansas State, Ben Sinnott, he looked like Mike Allstott as a tight end, quite honestly. He had a very great game.
Yeah.
Here was the problem for Kansas State. And what I took away, there's a lot we can talk about in the first three quarters that happened in this game. Both teams were responding, taking shots at one another. Both of them were throwing haymakers. Joe, what won Missouri the game is Drinkowitz in the fourth quarter. The play calling that they had in the fourth quarter. They outscored Kansas State 13-3. When you have a team that is trading punches back and forth, I know that you said Cook did not win them the game. I vehemently disagree. The kid went 23 of 35 for 356 and 2 touchdowns. In the fourth quarter, he was out there throwing dimes to guys not named Luther Burden. Down the stretch, Eli, it would appear, now I don't know, I don't have sourcing on this. I'm just saying Eli had a play sheet. You could tell that he was saying something. He went 7 for 7 in the last 2 drives. They scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. They kicked a 61-yard field goal. I get it, to win it. But, man, they clamped down defensively late into that game, and Cook was, and I'm using this as all puns, cooking. Here's the thing, though. I'll agree. Luther Burden went off. 7 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Brady Cook, to me, was the surprise because, Joe, Kansas State was scoring at will at times offensively. They had 2 drives. They get 14 points. And Brady Cook comes right down the field and, responds, getting 14 points of his own. I get the whole Luther Burden thing. Joe, he only had 100 yards of offense, if we're just going to break it down. Brady Cook was literally, Joe, I looked at this. Did you know that 9 people caught passes for Missouri? He was spreading that thing around like it was the Easter bunny and you're trying to hunt Easter eggs. That man was spreading them Easter eggs out everywhere. And I thought that Drinkwitz, we said this on Wednesday. This game was Eli, the seat's going to start getting really hot if you can't win this one. You got to win a big one. And Joey shut everybody up. They shut everybody up. You beat a top 15 team. You beat the Big 12 defending champs. They made a statement, bro, whether you like it or not, and Cook delivered.
It was a good game for Missouri. I give them a lot of credit for the way they played. I talked a lot about the defensive talent that they have and how well coached that they are and how dominant that they can be to make big plays when they need to step up and do so. But I'm not going to do the whole Brady Cook thing. The guy was fine. He was fine in the game. They won this game, and they were able to pick up those big plays, especially on that final drive, and Luther Burden was able to expose this. Kansas State secondary sucks. That is a terrible secondary. That is not a good secondary. When they go up against Texas, they're going to give up 400-plus yards. Brady Cook played the way that he did because
who knows with Quinn Ewers if Wyoming can go out there and clap them cheeks.
He was throwing to wide open receivers the entire time, and most of the throws that he had were short or screens. I give all the credit to one, Drinkwitz knowing how to set up and expose the weaknesses in the secondary, but you just talked about Luther Burden, man. I think that this Missouri team goes as far as Luther Burden can carry them. This is a true sophomore. It feels like a Rondell Moore type of a impact for like a smaller, speedier, quick acceleration, explosive guy that you just get him the football and let him go. They need to just continue to focus on getting him the ball. I don't know how Kansas State at one point didn't just say, we're going to put 2 guys on him. Terrible defensive play calling. But Luther Burden is one of the best receivers in the SEC, and he's a true sophomore.
No doubt. I think he already has 22 catches, like 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. He was good. You know what else, Joe? That defense for Missouri clamped down in that second half. They did wind up giving up 13 points in the second half. They gave up 14 points in the first. But, look, I thought defensively they played a lot better in the second half. I look at this team for Missouri and start asking myself this. Are they the second best team in the East?
I mean, the way that they played.
They're 3-0. They just come off a Kansas State win. I mean, do you think – I mean, look, do I think that Florida can beat them? Yeah. Do I think Tennessee can get hot and beat them? Yeah. But right now, man, they are a very competitive team. They are – defensively, Blake Baker it sends a lot of pressure. I mean, I love Blake Baker. He was, he's a really good DC. I just think that they can make some moves here. I said that they were my sleeper team in the SEC East. They continue to be my sleeper in the SEC East. And I just think that Drinkwitz is, for all the crap that people have given him, he delivered, man. And so the one thing that I do worry about Missouri, they did not run the football enough, in my opinion.
No, they did a terrible job running the ball. They loaded the box, and that's what kind of helped set up a lot of the open receivers that they had in this game. But their inability to run the ball that game, and also in the past couple of weeks, like Middle Tennessee State, I don't think they ran the ball very well. By the way, so here's part of this. This has to be brought up. I think that Missouri, if they play that way and they use this as a momentum builder, yes, they can be a damage-causing team in the East. But the fact that Alabama put up the amount of points that they did against Middle Tennessee State, and Missouri couldn't do that. Like, that's the evidence I had for questioning Brady Cook. Like, are they just going to revert back to that?
But Brady Cook didn't play bad in that game. He went 19 of 22 or some shit like that. Like, he didn't play bad at all.
I mean, that's my
he
point.
Had one more incompletion than he had of touchdowns against Middle Tennessee.
This offense doesn't necessarily scare me outside of Luther Burden. That's my point.
I don't disagree with that, but you know what? I don't think that they had a problem running the football. Joe, the Schroeder kid had 10 carries for 58 yards. I mean, it's not like they couldn't run the football.
They're just choosing not to.
Just choosing not to, which is really weird. But like I said, look, it doesn't matter if you're in the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12. There are spooky things that happen all over. Like if you go to the Swamp in a night game, which we just discussed, and Florida fans deserve a lot of the credit for that win too. Going to Como at 11 a.m., you might as well call hocus pocus, okay? Going to Como at 11 a.m., it's not fun. It's not fun. And let's see how Kansas State rebounds on this one.
I think they're done. This is one of those instances where like they've been fine, but like Will Howard's not going to get the job done against the better teams on their schedule.
Well, Joe, they lost to Tulane a year ago, and everybody thought it was a really bad loss, and they responded. I mean, you lost to arguably the second best team in the SEC East. It's not a massively bad loss.
But I'm not talking about it because of the loss and because they lost the game. It's how they lost and the issues that were clearly displayed in this game. The fact that Will Howard makes the mistakes that he does, the fact that he can't excel on third down. Like he struggles on third down.
If he's not throwing it to the Shanat kid, he's in trouble.
Right. Every time it was third down, I'm like, they're not getting this. They're not converting this. He is not somebody who I can rely on as I thought. I really thought that he was a good football player because of the way that he played in the Big 12 championship game, but I was wrong. And that secondary is problematic. The Big 12 has too many good receivers for them to face.
Can a guy just have a bad game at quarterback?
I've seen him do it too many times is my point. I'm not jumping to a conclusion. You can have a bad
to a conclusion on a quarterback. Shocker.
Guys can have bad games, but when they do the same thing over and over again and the types of mistakes that they make, I'm allowed to draw conclusions from that.
Let me ask you, you know what I thought about this, and you're going to hate this next week. You're going to hate this because I'm going to bring up some of the same type of topics.
Okay.
I don't think that they got any playmakers.
That's
we can
my
talk about
thing too.
Look, you know why I'm giving Will Howard a little bit of a pass? Joe, is any of those dudes not named Chenault going to play in the NFL on the outside? Because I don't think they have any playmakers.
Probably not. I think I've discovered we've been in doing this show for 9 months. I figured it out now. Here is the formula for this show. Joe criticizes quarterback. Blake apologizes for quarterback. We then move on. That's the cycle. That's the entire cycle.
No, you know what happens? What happens? And then the next week that quarterback goes stupid.
Yeah, so who do we think this week? Who do we think? We should predict that on Monday.
You know what else? Hey, hold on. Can I tell you something?
Uh-huh.
You had a really hot take about Jaden Daniels.
That's true.
Okay, a really hot take. It took me having a lot of friendships around Baton Rouge for them not to quote tweet and roast the shit out of you.
I don't care.
I don't want bad exposure for my co-host.
I say okay. Half of my Twitter feed is dumb shit. I put it out there knowing that people are going to quote tweet me. I don't know. It's a battle every single day. Whatever.
It is. Well, look, I do think that Missouri, this can be a win that kind of catapults them. But let me say this before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
A 61-yard field goal to win it. My God.
That dude's got a boot. By the way, people don't understand how kicking prospects translate to the NFL. It's like really lazy to do this guy's going to play in the NFL. The NFL is going right to the
61-yard field goal.
That's not how that works. He
also missed like a 37-yard field goal too.
The Cowboys just played a game with a kid who was a soccer player at Notre Dame. I've met that guy before, by the way. He was in my car once. But like it's so, I don't know, I keep remembering that. But it's so random how these kickers make it in the NFL. That's my random specialist point of the day.
By the way, I didn't bring this up. I just got this came on the AYS text line. I guess somebody can't comment. They just texted it in to the AYS one. He said, bro, this dude talking about this dude Joe talking about how bad Cook is, but hadn't said anything about Oklahoma State getting their ass kicked by South Alabama.
What does that have to do with it?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Honestly, sure.
Cut the mullet.
So I was listening to something this morning. Apparently, the new athletic director is is told Gundy he's, doesn't need to worry about anything. That might not be a good decision.
He just got his ass kicked by South Alabama. All right, let's move on to this Colorado State. Joe, I think I've said this on here, but I believe this wholeheartedly. Teams can only get up for so many games, meaning I think that you have 5 or 6 games a year where you can get up and play to your best ability. And I thought, and like everybody else thought, when Jay Norvell came out and said what he said about Deion and the glasses and all that, we thought that this would give this team an edge. Here's the
opposite.
They came out playing like shit. Colorado came out playing like shit. But here's the thing, too. Teams like Deion, when you take over a program, sometimes that you face an opponent that is not better than you. Joe, Colorado State is not better than Colorado. They don't have the athletes. They don't have the coaching. And sometimes you're going to find yourself in a dogfight. And I walk away from Colorado State and say to myself, you know what, man, that took a lot of resiliency. That took a lot of focus down the stretch from their quarterback and their coaching staff. Joe, they could have folded it in. I thought in the second half, I was like, man, I don't know if they're going to be able to score without Travis. And then here came Shedeur Sanders. They tied it up. They got the 2-point conversion, which, my God, what a fantastic 2-point conversion play call by Sean Lewis. And then they get in the overtime and they win it. I think Shedeur started feeling comfortable with his tight end, the kid number 87.
Holker.
What's his name?
Holker. Dallin Holker.
Well,
great
I'm going to tell you something. That kid's catch radius is insane.
He's got some juice after the catch, too.
Well, Shedeur missed him on the seam route along the hash marks, and dude just like completely contorted his body.
Yeah.
He looked good. Sometimes you just got to be able to win games that you're in, and you're in against an inferior opponent, and you do it. Joe, this team's 3-0, and last year they were 1-11. And Deion, for all the hype and fame that he gets, which somewhat is warranted, I mean, they're a really well-coached team. I think that they battled. That place was sold out. And you know what, man? I'm going to tell you this. I'm the opposite. I know people didn't like those fans rushing the field. Well, you're a 23-point favorite. Well, you know what? There has been a crap load of bad football in Colorado and Boulder. I'm okay with it. You know, I don't walk out of this game feeling any less bad about Colorado because I think that it showed a lot of heart and resiliency to come out with that win.
It's also a rivalry game. Like, that's one thing that I think was kind of forgotten about here is that, one, for them to react that way after the game, yes, to rush the field, it makes sense. But on the other side of this, to assume that Colorado State was just going to show up and take the beating, I think that was completely misconstrued. I'm on the same page as you. I think that is just an amazing fight for Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, to get his team to fight back like that. Shedeur Sanders, like, that is an amazing performance to put the team on his back. But it was forgotten by many.
Hold on, pause. What happened? Okay, never mind. When people start saying that, I'm like, oh my God, did somebody die?
They scored on a Hail Mary. That's pretty nuts. It was forgotten.
We're talking about Colorado.
That's hilarious. It was forgotten coming into this game that Torrey Horton is a really good NFL draft prospect.
Right.
Mo Camara is a really good edge rusher, NFL draft prospect. And honestly, that coaching staff's actually pretty good. Like, I know that Chad Savage, their wide receiver coach, like I have a little bit of a bias because he's come on my show a couple times. But that coaching staff's not bad. Like, I just think everyone assumed that, oh, Colorado State, what have they done? That Colorado State team did not want to get pushed around. My main takeaway from this, and it doesn't really change from what I saw the first 2 weeks. I watched the all 22 of the Nebraska game, and I immediately knew that this wasn't going to last. Like this, they weren't going to be good enough to get past the top 4 teams in the Pac-12. They were good enough to get to 7, maybe 8 wins. But once it came time to play Oregon this upcoming week, their roster deficiencies were going to catch up to them. It is too hard. It is too hard to have the roster turnover to bring in enough offensive and defensive linemen to be competing at the top of your conference. It is just not possible. And they brought in a lot of really good athletes. They just didn't bring in those bodies on the O-line and D-line. They got torn up by Colorado State. And I tell you what, right now, you think that Dan Lanning's not going to send the house after that offense? He's going to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And that Kamara kid from Colorado State, I know that he had the bad late hit on Shadur Sanders and he fell on him the way that he did. But I don't think that there was a lot of intent there, right? Like, I don't think that.
Yeah, they're going to call that though, because
I know, but this is why I hate that the penalty. Like, so Joe, think about this. He's got to sit out the entire second half of next week's game. Like, flag him, let him sit out the rest of the game. But I do think but he had a fantastic day. And
from New Jersey. He's from Newark, New Jersey.
How about that? You know what else too? Colorado played a true freshman center, and the kid's not ready. He wasn't ready, but he grew up. In that second half, he grew up.
Yeah.
Shadur Sanders, for me, though, I tell you what, the kid, for what it's worth, Shadur Sanders, man, I was saying this. I was in the Twitter spaces last night when I was watching the game, and I did not realize he had as big of an arm as he had. Like, he was making throws on frozen ropes, off platform, getting to his 4th and 5th progression, throwing the ball down the field, hitting his checkdowns. He was under pressure all night long, and great quarterbacks find ways to win. I agree with you, though, that this Oregon game could get lopsided because talent and depth. But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to doubt Deion in Colorado, though. I'm not going to do it. I mean, let me ask you this.
Yeah, why? Okay, go ahead.
Well, because I saw Colorado Oregon go down to Texas Tech and really get their asses handed to them. And another thing too, I mean, is Texas Tech a better football team than Colorado?
Their offensive and defensive lines are better than Colorado's. Yes, they are. That's why that game was close.
Texas Tech's too.
Wait, say it again.
Oregon, a lot of people are making a lot about Oregon right now. But the good team that they played, I mean, Texas Tech was kicking that ass in the second half. I don't think that this game is as lopsided as people are making it out to be either now.
It could be close. Look, I really see a path for it to be, and it's exactly what you just said, and I said at the beginning of the show. It's all going to be contingent on, like, can Shadur Sanders outplay all of the complications and all the issues that are going to show up in this game, which is a lot of pressure being thrown at him. His offensive line struggling to deal with a really good front seven. You know, does he have enough time? And also, like, if they miss on some drives, I'm not worried about Bo Nix and that offense not scoring. Like, this isn't TCU. Oregon is heads above TCU. I know that they struggled against Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. They came up.
Wait. South Carolina and Georgia, the outcome of that game, we're not worried about Georgia, right?
No, because you know why? Can I tell you why? Georgia's proven it. So Georgia's had games in the past under Kirby where, okay, they start off slow, and then they come out in the second half, they start kicking everybody's ass, and they win the football game. They go on and win national titles.
All right.
Dan Lanning does not get that same leniency, okay, if you will, because Joe, I mean, he goes down to Texas Tech and gets pushed around. after a team just lost to Wyoming. So what I'm trying to say here is, do I think Oregon's the better overall team? No doubt. No doubt. They have the better athletes on the line of scrimmage. I agree with you. And look, this game can get ugly. But at some point, Oregon's got to make a statement. You know, I remember last year when Oregon State beats Oregon, when Oregon has no business losing that game. At some point, they had no business losing that game. They had 2 late turnovers in that game. Bo Nix looked like absolute asshole. He couldn't convert on 3rd down. You go to Texas Tech to make a statement, and then that game's a 1-score game. Like, don't act like Colorado can't sling the ball on them. You want to talk about
They can, and I'm not saying that they can't. So I'm agreeing with you that it could be close. There's a path for it, but there's a more likely path that Oregon comes out swinging. Like, I really think that they saw Texas Tech and they looked past them. That's what I think that happened. You don't think that they're not going to be pissed off about? How many times are you going to
look past teams before we say maybe you're not that good?
But you don't think that they're not going to show up and be pissed off about all of this free attention that Colorado's getting and nobody's talking about them? I mean, Dan Lanning, even at the beginning of the season, was when they moved to the Big 12 and he was getting asked about it at a press conference.
Dan Lanning needs to worry about not losing to teams he has no business losing to. Dan Lanning needs to worry about himself. See, and here's the thing about Deion. Deion gets all the spotlight, right? Everybody starts talking about Deion, whatever. Deion's not calling these people out. He's not calling out other coaches.
Yes. I just think, though, for this game, separate from that point, I just think that this is going to be like a very quick, easy statement, ranked win for Oregon. They need to win that game. Like, they need to win this game to question the people like you that are saying that, well, they looked bad against Texas Tech. They need to win this game. They absolutely.
It's kind of like Missouri this week against Kansas State.
Right.
Like, hey, Eli, if you want to show me something, at some point you got to show me what you're made of, right? Like, you're going to have to show. Look, and I could be wrong. I probably won't pick Oregon to lose this game. I don't know. But I also know that, look, Colorado, if you're going to sleepwalk through this, it could be closer than the experts think. All right.
Yep.
So, Joe, we got some other teams that we need to talk on here. We're not going to talk about really the games, but I want to talk about specific teams.
Okay.
Maybe one game that we can talk on. Number one, let's start with Alabama before we get out of here. I don't know what to say. Like, I really am kind of at a loss of words for Alabama. Everybody's saying the dynasty's over. You know, they look bad, and you're probably right. We need to see and wait to see if the dynasty's over. I mean, if he coaches another 5 years and wins a national title, I mean, for crying out loud, is it really that over? But my God, I don't know how much I can say this. When Alabama fans were begging to move on from Pete Golding, when Alabama fans were begging to move on from Bill O'Brien, and Nick goes out there and hires Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees, and you got Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner coming in from the portal. What did you think was going to happen? What did people honestly think that was going to happen?
Oh, shit. Didn't mean to do that.
That's okay. I just don't know. Joe, then you go into they're tied with USF 3-3, and Ty Simpson has to come off the bench to save their ass.
You bring up a really good point here. It is annoying how you're not allowed to say Nick Saban's done. It's really annoying. I actually wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't retire.
Now, I'm not saying he's done.
I am. I'm sitting here saying he is done. That team is mediocre. That's an 8-win football team. We need to sit here and just admit to ourselves, you show up, you lay an egg against Texas, your quarterback can't throw the ball, and then you show up the next game against USF, and we find out, oh, these other two kids can't throw the ball. They don't have a guy that can deliver a pass. They literally need to run the wing T. That is the only way that they're going to have any ounce of success is if they run the goddamn wing T. You brought in Tommy Rees blows. I told all of you Alabama fans during the offseason, none of you wanted to listen. It's a joke. They are.
Because
So dumb.
George says that why is everybody acting like Alabama lost? Because they should never look at like that against USF.
No. USF, their record.
They're escaping. He said that they were working on it. Working on what? You've had an entire offseason and you've had 3 games to work on it. What have you seen from any quarterback or what they've done offensively to say that they can fix it?
They are.
Because that happened with Florida, George, doesn't mean that can happen with Alabama. Do you mean to tell me that Alabama doesn't want Graham Mertz right now?
Exactly. Graham Mertz is better than all 3 of those guys. But so that's my whole point here. Is not only that the offensive line's weak, there's some inefficiencies on their defense, but the fact that you've got 3 quarterbacks and it's not like they're average. It's not like they're slightly below average. All 3 of them are terrible. All 3 of them are not good enough to start full games. It's pathetic. It's unwatchable football. And for some reason, some people think that Milroe is going to start the next game and then suddenly light the world on fire.
Joe, he's their best quarterback.
I think that they do need to turn back to him. They need to go back to him. I think they pulled the plug a little too quick. And I blame Tommy Rees for this.
No,
a lot of
it. I know you want to blame Tommy because of your Notre Dame roots. You can't blame Tommy. You know who makes that move? The only person in the state of Alabama that can make the move of a quarterback change is who?
Saban.
Okay. At some point, you want to talk about nobody wants to talk about how bad they're doing. When are we going to start saying that Saban's made really bad moves?
It's a good point. He needs to retire.
And you just want him to retire because you want it to be over with.
No.
He doesn't need to retire.
Okay, here's actually I think this is a good point.
If they're going to continue to suck as an LSU guy myself,
okay, so I
hope he doesn't retire.
That's why you don't want him to retire, but I would rather, as somebody who likes good college football and likes college football legacies, I like it, and even in the NFL, I like it when guys go out on top. Tom Brady retiring after going to a playoff game and then getting embarrassed in said playoff game, that's the better note to go out on. That's the much better note to go out on. I really think that Saban needs to go out with a little bit of dignity for them to finish with 8 wins, maybe, beat up on a G5 team in a bowl game and then just, say goodbye to everybody. Mike Krzyzewski kind of did that at Duke. I don't see a way that this thing recovers, man.
We'll see. Talk about your Washington Huskies.
Dude, I told you, man. I told you at the beginning of the season that is the most complete team in the Pac-12, offensively and defensively. They've shown up on a week-to-week basis and beat the living F out of everybody that they've played. Boise State is one of the best G5 teams in the country. They dominated them. And they just played a P5 program. I know that Michigan State is dealing with their roster turmoil and their locker room turmoil. That is a separate issue. But for them to win 41-7, to throw for over 500 yards, for all those guys to those receivers to pick up the big gains that they did, that team is a playoff team. I'm going to continue to say it.
I can't go there yet. I can't go there because Michigan State, with everything that they had this week, I'm not going to say, Washington beat Michigan State, they're a playoff team. But they continue to win. They continue to look impressive. They're going to be in my top 10 this week. I don't think that is a hot take. I think that Michael Penix Jr., if he's not on one of your top 5 guys for the Heisman at the current moment, then you're wrong. Yeah. He's playing fantastic. That offense continues to move. They look really good. I want to see what they look like when they really get tested, because this week they did not get tested at all. That Michigan State team is just really bad, man, and they're playing unenthusiastic. They don't give a shit, and I don't blame them. All right, so we had a couple teams here: LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, Arkansas, and BYU. Which one of those teams impressed you the most, and which teams did not impress you at all?
Wait, you said Ohio State, Arkansas, or Ohio State?
LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, Arkansas, and BYU. Who surprised you the most? Who you think just kind of really depressed you?
Arkansas depressed me. I mean, it's just kind of continuing the narrative of their lack of quality play. They're not showing up on a week-to-week basis, and Sam Pittman might be on the hot seat at the end of the year, depending on how they finish. They've got a difficult stretch the next few games, so Let's see how they respond. I think the most impressive was LSU.
Say their names.
For them, shut up. For them to show up and do what they did in a game where everyone else laid an egg. Everyone else laid an egg this week against a weak opponent to completely eviscerate them, an in-conference team. That's a sign of a quality roster. I just think that game got away from them against Florida State, and our perception of them was changed. And everyone wants to dunk on Brian Kelly because he is one of the most easily hateable people in college football. That's the reality of it.
All right, I'm not gonna go biased here. Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by BYU. I think they're a really well coached team. Joe, I mean, they go down to Arkansas and beat an Arkansas team. Look.
I think Arkansas is just bad. I don't think that's so much BYU is good.
Anytime you go on the road and beat an SEC team and you're a Big 12 team, I'm going to say that's impressive.
All right.
Slovis was dialing it up. That defense was making KJ Jefferson look like he was on a JV team.
They beat Sam Houston 14-0. So
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
I'm out.
You're right. They look like shit the first 2 weeks. Yeah. I was impressed by them, man. In all honesty, I think it's Ohio State for me. I think we go into this week as one of the biggest matchups of the season is next week with Notre Dame and Ohio State. I'm not saying that because you're a Notre Dame guy, but look, Kyle McCord, now that he was given the entire job, Joey looked good. He looked like he wasn't stressing as much. He didn't force things when he didn't have to. He played to the offense. He looked good. I know it's against Rudy Putek, but
yeah, that secondary is terrible.
Well, regardless, you act like Navy's secondary was great.
It's elite.
Okay,
I understand. It's
a massive game this week. Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Can Notre Dame and Sam Pittman? Can Marcus Freeman, change the narrative about himself and go into a game with? Quite honestly, I know you're going to hate me saying this. From the top of the roster to the bottom of the roster is more talented than his. I mean,
I don't think there's that much of a separation, though.
I'm not saying that. Ohio State has the pedigree and more talent. Can they outcoach Ohio State? That's about. Can Sam Hartman go on a Heisman run? Can this be a start of a Heisman campaign?
I think it can be.
Did he play some teams in the beginning part of this season that are ass, and he can't get you over the hump? We got a lot to find out now, but I'm going to leave you with this. This is going to be the key thing for the week. You ready? The game is going to be won and lost in one position because I think that both lines of scrimmage are going to be pretty even, right? I think that both teams are going to get their own. Does Notre Dame have the dudes offensively on the outside that can go up against those DBs for Ohio State? That's it. I think you're going to.
On paper, they do. It's just a matter of
games aren't played on paper. They're played on grass.
That's true.
That's going to be the game. Listen to your boy. Can Notre Dame show that they got dudes on the outside? Estime is going to go stupid. I think he's going to get his numbers. I think the O-line's going to get pushed. Look, it is what it is. Can those dudes on the outside win against Ohio State? Because I know what Marvin Harrison's about to do. He's about to put Ben Morrison in the corner.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Couldn't guard the dudes against Navy, Joe.
He had 18 yards. Against Indiana. I don't know. I'm just saying maybe he gets challenged a little bit by somebody.
And what did he do this week and the week before?
Benjamin Morrison.
Oh, he had over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Benjamin Morrison has allowed one of the lowest QBRs.
He's played Dookie water.
No, in his entire career. Has allowed one of the lowest QBRs of active corners in college
Ben Morrison
football.
about to get cooked. Marvin Harrison, here he comes.
We're gonna recap that one on the show. I think we should.
We will see you guys again tomorrow. Y'all have a good night. Wait, you got another show too.
Yeah, I got one after this.
All right. Hack City. Y'all go follow it. See y'all soon. Peace.